The Atlanta Hawks are truly puzzling to me as they have a roster construction that ultimately doesn't make the most sense in my eyes, as they've been in the middle of the Eastern Conference after failing to reach that promised land of the conference finals once again after their 21 appearance. It seems to me that stripping down this roster and really trying to figure out how to get out of this middling Eastern Conference is the key for this Hawks squad. So we're going to dive in and explore the Hawks off-season preview, looking at trades I think they could make, potential free agents that they could sign, and also looking at who I think they should eye in the draft coming up. If you're a fan of the Atlanta Hawks, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Was I right about the team? Was I wrong about the team? And ultimately, if you do enjoy the content here on Switch City, make sure to hit the subscribe button and check out the other videos listed down low. I previously have recorded, I think, around 11 of these offseason previews so far. So if you want to check in on some other teams, there definitely is some content for you. Without further ado, let's dive in and let's explore this Hawks squad. So like I mentioned, the Atlanta Hawks are the team that we're going to be talking about today. And the Hawks this season just, honestly, once again, we're in the middle. I feel like everyone jokes about the Atlanta Hawks finishing, 40 and 42 like they did this season, or 41 and 41. And there's the meme of, the last 5 or 6 seasons, they're like 561 and 561. That's an exaggeration, but like whatever the number is. And I think it's hilarious that they've, understood that and said, yeah, we're going to stick with it. We're going to keep pushing for this middling of the pack road. We don't really care if we can strip it down to get to the top, or we don't really care if we want to go down to the bottom. We just want to be in the middle. And for fans of those franchises, I feel bad ultimately because there's just no way out of this, right? Like, obviously the Hawks are a fun, exciting team. They made some big time moves. They got a very, very solid draft pick in as well at the number 1, even if he wasn't the prestigious number 1 overall pick like a Victor Wembanyama or a Cooper Flagg. Zachary Rizache was a fantastic piece inserting himself into this Hawks team, specifically late into the second half of this season. But not only just that, this team has some key fundamental building blocks that they can really build with. They acquired Dyson Daniels last year, sending away DeJounte Murray. He had that blossoming of a year when he was actually able to develop and play in a system. You saw Jalen Johnson, once again, even though he dealt with injuries, rose again to the occasion for this Atlanta Hawks squad. And throughout their depth and their bench, they have some little key holes that maybe they could add or insulate to make them a contending team once again. But truly, I don't think that this team is really going to set themselves up into those conversations, specifically with some of the stars in the Eastern Conference already, regardless of the weekend Eastern Conference. So when looking at their salary cap, when looking at their projections, once again, $155 million under the tax threshold, have to spend some money in this offseason to get to that tax threshold number here. But I do see the Hawks going out, maybe using some of their money in free agency to bring some of these guys back. They do have a lot of key free agents, guys like Clint Capella, Larry Nance Jr., Karis LeVert, Keaton Wallace even. And those guys could either be poached by other teams or potentially could be brought back. Really going to see and prove to the fans what direction this team is really heading into. So as we all know with the Hawks, they had the 13th pick. They landed the 13th pick here in the NBA draft. And let's discuss their offseason plans first, looking at some trades. So the first player that we're going to be discussing, and to no surprise, is Trae Young. And the reason we're going to be discussing Trae Young is because I think he should be moved. Now, do I think he's going to be moved? No, but I do think that he should, because at this point of his career, it is clearly known that Trae Young is not going to be that number 1 star or that one alpha to really take you to the promised land. I think at this point of his career, he's proven he can be a great second option and be a great offensive player for you, but he's going to need a big man that he can work in the pick and roll with to really succeed, which we've really yet to see with Atlanta here with their development of guys like Onyeka Okongwu and sticking with Clint Capella. But not only just that, I do think that obviously he has his defensive limitations, and I think Trae Young obviously having those offenses, the mainstay of the game, everyone focuses on that. If a player can score points, he is effective, but he's going to have the right team around him. And even though Atlanta has those right defenders, I just don't necessarily, like I said, think that a team like Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, and Zachary Rizache, even if they all are getting better alongside Trae Young, is even to push this team even to a top 3 conversation in the Eastern Conference. I think at best it's a 4, maybe a 5, and at that point, what are you pushing for in a weakened Eastern Conference where Jason Tatum is potentially coming back next year? Who knows the uncertainty of Giannis Antetokounmpo, the uncertainty of the Philadelphia injuries. It just seems best to me that if I were the Atlanta Hawks, I would cut my losses. You already saw with Dyson Daniels last season, right? And he can be a fantastic developmental piece, and not only just that, can play the point guard position as a player that can really fill in these holes for this squad as a playmaker and as a distributor. But not only just that, he can work perfect off ball as a defender. So I think if you're the Hawks, you look to move a team with Trae Young, sending him in a 3-team deal where you're sending Trae Young to a contender and trying to get back some sort of volume of scoring back, at least in a younger capacity, something that can help you once again maybe shrinking this push just a little bit back and still even maybe keep you in that middling range where you want to be, but at least gives you the potential to take that leap with this new revamped roster and really set yourselves up. One player that maybe Hawks fans aren't interested in, but I kind of am for this team, is a guy in Jalen Green, and I know you might obviously be like, oh, the offensive inconsistencies, whatever, but you insulate a guy like Jalen Green who's going to be all offense, similar to Trae Young, alongside a playmaking defensive beast in Dyson Daniels, an absolute lengthy wing in Zachary Zarche and Jalen Johnson. You're sending to the fans that you still want to be competitive, you still want to be fun. We are also taking the length of this push of a contention with Trae Young and resetting it back a couple seasons back to still give you competition this season, but also give you the hope of being in that competition in the future if Green, Dyson, Zachary Rizarche all hit their full potential. So ultimately, I think that's where the Hawks should consider some things. I don't think they'll move Trae Young, but maybe they will, and if they don't, keep an eye on him at the trade deadline if the Hawks are in a middling path once again. And then, yeah, for the Hawks, there's no one else really to talk about for them to really be traded. You want to look at their roster. Dyson should stay. Reza Shea should stay. Johnson should stay. Okongwu should stay, right? I mean, maybe Terrence Mann is a name to look out for, but unless it's a sign-in trade, I feel like there's no one really else. Maybe a Kobe Buffkin, where he's tried to be that offensive creator for this team as the backup point guard. It hasn't really looked as, I believe a lottery pick or a mid-first round pick in Kobe Buffkin there. We have seen Keaton Wallace, the brother of Cason Wallace, play a solid backup role there as well as a defensive point guard. So maybe they bring back Keaton and look to move off a guy in Kobe Buffkin. Not really much to say about Buffkin. Maybe he could go to a team towards the bottom or fighting towards the bottom, maybe a Brooklyn, a Utah, New Orleans, a place where he's able to kind of just showcase his skills and really blossom due to injuries or a weakened roster. But ultimately, I don't think he's going to be fitting here in Atlanta for the long haul. So yeah, like I said, those are really the only two people I could see be traded from the Hawks. I feel like realistically the Hawks are basically going to run it back or keep it very similar, which I don't really agree with, and that's why they puzzle me. But when looking at the draft lottery here, we saw the Hawks land pick 13, and they got that pick via the Sacramento Kings. If you forgot the Kevin Huerter trade, which has allowed them to get this pick here. And for the Hawks, like I mentioned, I think there's a lot of viable pieces here in the draft. So let's dive in and let's explore what directions they could go at pick 13. So my overall favorite pick for the Atlanta Hawks here at pick 13, and it may be a little bit too high, so maybe they trade out of the lottery here, but it is Thomas Sorber out of Georgetown. And Sorber had a foot injury for Georgetown this year, so wasn't able to participate in, some combine stuff or at the end of his season. But a guy in Sorber, I think, projects himself to be a fantastic fit here. One, if you look at the Hawks, they have a big hole at the center position. Now, Onyeka Okongwu has been very solid and someone that I've wanted to see them take over for the center position, but his height of 6'8" is very limiting for them at the center position. Even though he's got that length and that size and interior presence, that very limits a team like that. So if you move on from a guy from Clint Capella, you really want to invest in Okongwu. I think investing in a guy in Sorber is the complete opposite. Obviously, at 7 foot, fits the frame of a really tall and lengthy center, but not just like that. Great post player, great offensive tool skill for a big man, and I feel like this is kind of the opposite of what we've seen with Atlanta, right? They've always had these rim protecting, shot blocking centers, and Sorber is a new taste for Atlanta here in the draft. And I think out of all the teams that kind of fall around this pick, this is the best potential, because once again, if the Hawks look to reset a little bit and even stay middling but trade a guy like Trae Young, there's no expectations for a guy like Thomas Sorber to come in and have to take over Onyeka Okongwu or fill these backup center minutes to exemplary time. And I ultimately think that Sorber could have time, especially coming off that foot injury if he was drafted to Atlanta, post them trading Trae Young, to really fit into that mold for this team. So I really like Thomas Sorber, even if they do keep Trae Young. Once again, pick and roll partner, lob threat, perfect fit for the Hawks. Thomas Sorber is my guy and my number one prospect for the Hawks. My second prospect is Jace Richardson. And Richardson obviously has those quarrels about his height, 6 foot with no shoes, a little bit questionable in the NBA, but produces that great offensive ability. And this is where I think if you're the Atlanta Hawks, you're looking to move off of Kobe Buffkin, maybe you're looking to move off of Trae Young. Even if you do bring back a guy like Jalen Green or someone else, this is a guy in Jace Richardson can help to supplement that offense that was being replaced from Trae Young. Jace Richardson, one of the best scorers and shooters in this draft class, falling around the late lottery, maybe even mid-teens or late or mid to early 20s, but I do think will be picked before then. I think is a perfect fit. Once again, a little bit of an older player as well, so can go into Atlanta, be a fantastic piece alongside a guy in Dyson Daniels. And once again, even if you draft Jace Richardson, Dyson can still play the 2, and you can have a smaller guard lineup similar to what you had with Trae Young. It still works. And Jace Richardson is just a younger piece that is going to provide that offensive output that Trae Young would give you, but also at a, once again, less of a we need to jump the timetable to be contending right now type of beat, which allows guys like Dyson and Zachary Rizarche and even Onyeka Okongwu and Jalen Johnson to a certain degree be able to fully reach their utmost potential for the Atlanta Hawks. So I like Richardson if they trade Trae Young. If they don't trade Trae Young, this is not a pick I'm going for. And then lastly, the guy that we're going to be talking about here today is Colin Murray-Boyles from the University of South Carolina. I've been getting him mixed up with his name, his position. It's been really bad here, but Colin Murray-Boyles plays the power forward position here. And for the Atlanta Hawks, they have very similar roles like Colin Murray-Boyles, right? A little bit of a passing big, low post player, and with guys like Okongwu and Okongwu and Jalen Johnson, you might question this fit of need. But if you forget, the Hawks had DeAndre Hunter before they traded him to the Cavs and didn't necessarily want to trade him away and really liked the value of having 3 wings. And we also saw they were potentially interested at the trade deadline in guys like Michael Porter Jr. or Brandon Ingram. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Atlanta Hawks also feel like, hey, adding another wing in Colin Murray-Boyles is going to fill that void or need of that backup wing that we are missing. And if they want to run Onyeka at that true center position or potentially even look to trade a guy in Onyeka Okongwu, maybe a guy in Colin Murray-Boyles fills that role for them at the 6-7 role position. So, like I mentioned, not the flashiest pick, not the best pick. Sorber would be my number 1 guy, like I mentioned here. But Murray-Boyles kind of helps out that wing group, and Jace Richardson helps out that guard group, depending on the direction that this team goes. And then lastly, looking at free agency, we know the Hawks, like I mentioned, have to spend some money. So who are they going to go out and get? Well, ultimately, I don't necessarily know any key names that really jump out to me if I'm the Atlanta Hawks. I know I've mentioned this in some previous videos, but if they do a trade with Trae Young, maybe they pursue a guy like D'Angelo Russell. Once again, could supplement that offensive role. He can still start alongside Dyson. You could also bring him off the bench if you traded for another player and still wanted to supplement that offense. You pass on a guy in Jace Richardson, maybe make that Trae Young for Jalen Green trade with the third team, because obviously he's not going to the Houston Rockets to help them. And then ultimately, you get a guy as well in Jace Richardson. So ultimately, the possibilities are endless for Atlanta, but like I mentioned, I think they're kind of going to keep it the same and kind of run it back. And when you look at it, guys that are kind of out in free agency, it's a little bit hard to pinpoint where they're going to go. So I want to just talk about 2 free agents from this team in general, and one of those being a guy in Clint Capella. And Capella, like I've mentioned earlier, I think should have been benched a little while ago. I really like Onyeka Okongwu. They drafted him 6th overall. I wanted to see him used to his best potential, and the Hawks tried to use that this season and kind of seemingly did. And Clint Capella, getting a little bit older, still could be that perfect, rim protector, rim runner, defensive interior presence, but ultimately, in my opinion, isn't that like top tier free agent need that you need to really bring back, specifically if you do draft a guy in Thomas Sorber. But if Atlanta wants to continue to run the course, then bring him back in the next is Caris LeVert. Now, LeVert, a little bit different. They acquired him in the DeAndre Hunter deal, and LeVert provides that offense off the bench and gives you some scoring at that shooting guard / wing position, something they very much lack with guys like Jalen Johnson, who can still shoot the ball at a pretty decent clip, and Zachary Rizarche, who can also shoot pretty decently. But having that offensive creator and go-getter off this bench, kind of similar to that Bogdanovich role, really helped and succeeded with this team, and who knows? I think Caris LeVert, once again, if they want to stay middling, could help. I do think a lot of teams will be interested in Caris LeVert, and that's where he might be able to get preyed away from the Atlanta Hawks, and that's where these true discussions of this team really do come into the play of what moves should they ultimately make to get back to this kind of situation that they want to get to? Are they going to be able to bring back these free agents that they have? Are they going to have to pursue new ones? Are they going to get a little bit younger? Ultimately, free agency is a bigger question than most. In my opinion, I think the Hawks are going to go back with some of their guys, maybe even a Larry Nance Jr., Keaton Wallace, try to bring those guys back, try to keep this continuation of this roster, but I don't think that's the right decision. But once again, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. The Hawks, I believe, have someone new in the front office coming in as well, president, operations, something like that. So there could be some changes coming in, and I could be right in saying that this team does puzzle me. We might see these massive changes come, or they could stick the path. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about the Atlanta Hawks once again. And if you do enjoy this content, let me know down below in the comments section what your thoughts were on this Atlanta Hawks moves. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys did enjoy, and these videos will be coming out every single day leading up to the draft. So if you do enjoy them, make sure to continue to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and peace out.